Welcome to the Personal Development Essentials podcast. Today I have the real pleasure to be interviewing an extraordinary person. He is a great believer in the power of our mind. He has written a book recently which is an Amazon #1 bestseller, and recently got a publishing contract with Hay House. He is also a successful property investor and a healer, and he has an exceptional story that happened back in 2008. Aaron Timms, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Aaron, I want to start really by giving a little bit of a background on about you, really. So back in 2008, you had a tragic accident with a car, and it was an event that most people luckily will never have to experience anything like that. Tell us briefly what happened, what was the situation, so that people can get an idea of how severe it was.
Yeah, absolutely. The day was Monday the 22nd of September 2008, and it was no ordinary Monday because it was my best friend's 24th birthday. And because it was his 24th birthday, we decided to go out and celebrate with a meal. And that's exactly what we did. And as we left the restaurant, he decided that he needed the toilet, and off he went. So my girlfriend and I at the time, they were brother and sister, my best friend and my girlfriend. She got into the driver's seat. However, I was standing by the car. I didn't get in because previously I hadn't been able to get in because I had a broken leg. My leg was in a plaster cast from a football injury, which meant I was walking on crutches. Mm-hmm. And the car was a small 3-door little Audi, and it meant that I couldn't climb into the back. So I didn't realise that I was about to make a decision that was going to save my life. As I was stood by the car, waiting for my friend to come, mm-hmm. Something, it was like an energy, a knowing, I don't know exactly what, something told me, get in. So that's what I did. I climbed into the back seat. Into the back seat. It was awkward. At that time, I had no idea why I was doing it, but I did it. And off we went. And that was when the crash happened. As we were making our way home, we were involved in quite a serious crash. It meant that the car flipped upside down at around 80 miles an hour. We hit a lamppost mid-air and we landed on the roof. I remember this like it was yesterday, and as we landed, the sound, something I'll never forget, and I can't exactly explain how, but somehow I knew I was amongst death. I felt this cold, still, dead energy in the air. And I was in a lot of pain. I had severe back pain. I couldn't feel my legs. I didn't really know what was going on. So eventually I was cut out. This was 45 minutes it took for the fire brigade and the ambulance to get to me. I felt like it was days. And I don't remember the journey back to A&E. I do remember arriving at A&E on the stretcher, on the bed though, and it was very odd, and it was like I wasn't me. It was like I was somebody else up in the corner of the room, almost like a camera watching the whole thing going on. And I remember looking and watching myself on the bed, and I was strapped down, and I had the orange head brace and the neck brace strapped to the bed. And I remember seeing myself shouting and screaming, where are they? And, what's going on? Once the initial emergency had died down and things were more calm, I was in the intensive care room, and I was with my dad. No one else was in the room, and it was quiet. and I remember seeing something at the end of the bed. And at the time, I thought it was a doctor. I thought I saw a white coat. I said to my dad, "What's the doctor saying?" He said, "Nothing, mate. Calm down. Nothing." "Dad, what's the doctor saying? Tell me. Don't lie to me, Dad." "Nothing, mate. Calm down." And this went on. And little did I know at the time, this was when I was having the spiritual world thrust upon me. And at the time of the crash, I was 21 years old. All I cared about was football and beer, nothing else. I had no understanding or knowledge of the spiritual world or spirit or healing or anything like that. And I was told, not in words, in information, that everything was going to be okay, that there was going to be a larger journey, and that there was a purpose to this all. And I now understand that it was my friend passing from life to death, and he'd come to say goodbye for one last time and come to reassure me. So later, I was delivered the news, my mum delivered the news to me, that both my girlfriend of 6 years and my best friend of 8 years had been killed upon impact. They were pronounced dead at the scene. The pain of that was worse than the pain in my back. It was incredible. I knew that there was death, but that clarified that they were both dead, that neither of them had survived. And then if that wasn't bad enough, I was later delivered the news that I'd broken my back. At the time, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know much about the body or how it worked. I just knew that my legs didn't work, my body was lifeless, and it was serious. So I was later transferred to Romford because they have a neurological specialist unit there, and the injuries was severe. Mm-hmm. And I was transferred by a air ambulance. So I had to go in the helicopter because to travel by road was too dangerous. I was too vulnerable. And I have an incredible story of hope and belief that I'd like to share with you, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
When I got into Romford, the MRIs and the CT scans confirmed that not only had I broken my back, I dislocated the vertebrae and my spinal cord was trapped. And this meant that the surgeons and the consultants there had to plan the surgery, which meant I was laid in bed for 8 days. And once the surgery was done, I remember going into surgery and I remember feeling very relaxed, actually. Under the anaesthetic, it was the first time I had a moment of rest. And when the surgery was done, my dad was called into the office to speak to the surgeon. And what he'd done was he made sure he was the only one available to speak to at the time, because he wanted to protect my family and make sure that he was delivered the news before anybody else. That in itself was incredibly brave, but what happened next was incredible. So the surgeons spoke to my dad and they delivered the news that the surgery went better than they could have imagined. They did a brilliant job. It was very clinical because the spinal cord was trapped, and any wrong moves, it meant that the spinal cord would be severed completely. Mm-hmm. And that's serious. That means paralysis for life, maybe. So the surgery went very well. However, the bad news was that my spinal cord had suffered more damage than they had originally thought, and there was lacerations across the cord, and I'd lost some of the cerebral spinal fluid. And the prognosis that they gave my dad was I was going to be paralysed for life, and that I was going to spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair.
So they considered this situation that like it's not treatable, it's not something that can be healed.
Yes, okay. Yeah. Absolutely. The prognosis from the experts was that it was permanent. And what happened next is incredible. You'll have to bear with me here. My dad was heartbroken, as anyone with children or even without children could imagine. And he went home. And my stepmother, she's She's been around healing, self-healing, energy healing, the spiritual world. She's very spiritual. She's been around this for many years, many decades. And she said to my dad, when he got home and they were talking about what the prognosis was, she said to him, "You cannot tell him the truth." We're a family of truth and we believe in the truth. However, she said to him, in this moment, you cannot tell him the truth, because if you remove his hope and his belief, you have no chance. He will have no chance. So, in an act of love and in bravery, my dad decided that he was not going to tell me, that I wasn't to know. So when he came back to the hospital, he told the surgeons and my consultant that the family and Aaron is not to know the true prognosis. Because I was because I was 21 years old and I was of legal age, it was a legal requirement to tell me, and the surgeons said they were going to tell me regardless of whether he was or not. And my dad stood in the doorway of the intensive care room and he said to them, "You are not coming in. You will not take away hope and belief from my son. You have no right." And this act of bravery is incredible, because he risked not being able to see me through this recovery, because he knew the importance of hope and he knew the importance of belief. And due to the exceptional circumstances, the surgeon and the consultants agreed that they would allow this. I had to know at some point, but they would allow my dad to pick the right time to tell me. But he never did.
He handled it very...
He never told me. And I never knew the true prognosis was paralysis, permanent paralysis.
And you say in your book that this single event was the reason that you're working now. The fact that your father disclosed this information from you.
Absolutely. I believe that that's the reason that I am walking. And in my mind, I never saw myself as permanently disabled. I never saw myself as permanently paralyzed. In my mind, I was someone with an injury that was going to heal.
So even though it was something very serious, you had the hope that you will go through that and get better, because you were led to believe that it is something that can be treated or cured, whereas the doctors had said that it's permanent. There is no chance of you walking again.
Absolutely. I was told that I was going to be transferred to Stoke Mandeville Spinal Injury Centre. And when I heard this, in my mind, I had this image of Stoke Mandeville as this hospital of miracles, not like a conventional hospital or rehabilitation centre. I had dreamt up this kind of dream in my head about how I was going to go there and we were going to create a miracle. And I didn't know this at the time, that in the mind of the medical community, I was being transferred there to be rehabilitated for life in a wheelchair, to learn how to transfer from the wheelchair to the bed and the wheelchair to the car seat and so on. But in my mind, I was going there to learn to walk again.
You used the word miracle just now, and indeed it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Most people would look at something like that in terms of a miracle, and when I say miracle in this case, I mean something that we really can't explain. Something that is beyond the knowledge of science or our knowledge systems. So we classify something like this that we don't understand as a miracle. But I understand that it is, from your point of view, it's not something that is not understandable. You understood how the healing happened and what the process was. Or is it's more complicated?
I understand what I did.
Okay.
I don't fully understand the healing process. I understand some of it. I understand what I did. I understand it a lot more now than I did when I was in the process.
Okay.
I turned to energy healing when I was in hospital. I turned to meditating. I turned to visualizations. and I practiced all of these things intensely. I did that at the time out of desperation. I did that at the time. I did that out because I had no other option. Physio initially wasn't an option because in the minds of the medical community there, it was a waste of time and resources.
Mm-hmm.
They were offering me occupational therapy. Occupational therapy is wonderful, but it wasn't what I needed to get me healing. So I was desperate. So I started to read books and started to try and understand how this could work, how this could happen. And I had no idea what I was doing at the time.
The reason why I asked that about the miracle is, in my head, in my mind, and I suppose with many people, a miracle is something that is reserved for a few people. Not many people experience something so intense in their life to consider a miracle or to be considered miracle. But that's what I'm trying to get from you, that you say that it's not yourself that the miracle happened. It is something that can happen, or anyone can go through this process of self-healing as you did.
Absolutely. I believe that there's a miracle inside every one of us. I believe that there's lots of miracles that happen around the world every day. And, you know, science is something that we like to use because science demystifies things for us. And it's a really great way of the how-to, filling in the dots in the middle, which is something that we seem to need and want as humans. And when I managed to let go of that need to know, the miracle really started to happen. We don't know science to its full entirety. As a human race, we know science. We know a lot about science, but we probably know less than 1%, really. And miracles happen all of the time, and everybody has a miracle. And I believe actually that it's our own belief systems that get in the way of the miracles.
Yes, that's what I read your book and I was fascinated by it for many reasons. But I remember there is one point that you say that belief is what fuels the full potential of your mind. And you said something, it was in the lines of if you can achieve this miraculous healing, so can someone else. And that is, for me, it's the most intriguing and the most fascinating thing. And that's what you've started doing, I understand, fairly recently, which is healing others.
Absolutely, yeah. It's something I didn't realize that I had. Everybody can heal. Some people are more intuitive with it than others because they are more aligned with the universe. It's part of their journey. I recently discovered that I'm very intuitive and I have this ability to heal others. And I've started applying that to other people as well. And it's really important because I say to people, if I can do it, you can too.
Mm-hmm.
If I can do it, you can too. And I keep repeating it and I keep repeating it because it means so much to me. I'm so passionate about it. I'm a person that created a miracle. I took the impossible and I made it impossible. What I really want people to know, though, is that I am just a human being. That's all I am. No more, no less, and that's wonderful, and that's enough. And
so you don't think you have some special powers that allowed you to do what you just did?
No, I don't think I have a special power at all. I just think that I have huge belief, and to me, belief is like a superpower. Everybody has the capability to believe, and belief is a superpower in my eyes. And I have belief, which is why I have this superpower, but everybody has the capability to believe. So,
do you want to take us through then the process of what it was that you were doing in terms of the practices or what was it that you did while you were in the hospital and afterwards, I suppose, to allow you to get from a diagnosis of permanent paralysis, which you were unaware of, but still you were paralyzed. So I can only imagine that this voice in your head must have been screaming.
Yeah. What I did, and again I'm going to say it, if I can do it, you can too. And the reason that means so much to me is because I watched this film, and it was a film with Bruce Lee, and it's called The Dragon, and many people don't know this, but he broke his back and he was paralyzed in a very similar way that I was before he became famous and before he filmed a lot of his films. And I watched this film and I thought, well, if he can do it, I can too. If he can do it, I can too. And all I kept thinking to myself is, the body had the ability to grow bone, grow muscle, grow skin tissue, grow neurological tissues. And I just kept thinking that if the body has the ability to grow this in the first place, it must have the ability to regrow it. And I kept thinking, imagining it like my spine was like an electrical cable and someone had come along and cut the cable, and all I needed to do was regrow the connection in the middle. And again, out of desperation, I just laid in bed and I imagined this process happening over and over, and I had nothing better to do. I was laid in intensive care, and one day I got this tiny little twitch in my toe, tiny little twitch, and it was so minute that I was questioning myself: am I going mad? Am I really seeing this? And I wasn't sure. And then one day I finally got my physio that I had been demanding and been denied. And I think I just got the physio out of sympathy or something, actually, because of the losses and the poor guy, and give him the physio. So I was all excited, and I didn't sleep the night before. I was so excited that I finally got my physio, and I was sat in the room and I was waiting for the physio to come in, and I was thinking, yes, we're gonna go work on my legs, we can get me walking. And I had all these dreamy visions in my head about this miracle that was going to happen. And the physio came in and she sat down, and I was like, when are we going to start? When are we going to start? And she just went, stop. Aaron, stop. And I was sort of taken back, and I looked at her and she said, listen to me now. You do not have any movement, any feeling in your legs. You are paralyzed. When or if we ever get any movement or anything in your legs, we'll deal with it then. Until then, I'm sorry, but you need to accept the fact that you're paralyzed. And this moment, the rage that came through my body, that how dare you decide the future of my health? How dare you decide whether I'm going to be disabled for the rest of my life or not? And how dare you deny me of my recovery? And this rage came through my body, and it was such a force of energy that I couldn't control it. My arms started moving, and I lost control. And as I lost control, I saw this image, and it's clear as day. Still to this day I remember. And this image was me running in a rage, in a fit of anger, and everything that was in my way I was knocking out of the way. And then next thing I know, it's the morning. And when I woke up, I was told that I'd been given some sedative drugs to calm me. Okay. And in that moment, I lost control. And when I woke up, my dad was by my bed, and he'd driven through the night to be with me because he had heard of what had happened. And I looked at my dad, and in that moment, I felt like a child, like a little baby again, and that needed his mum or his dad. And my dad was there, and I broke down, and I felt love. I felt like this childlike love. And I got out of the wheelchair, and as I sat in the chair, full of this energy of love, and I just had my underwear on because I was getting ready for my morning wash, this flicker happened in my thigh, and my thigh muscle started to move. And as I looked down, there was no denying this. There was no denying it. I knew this was the real thing. Wow. And I shouted, Dad, look, Dad, grab Mr. Newton. He was my consultant. Grab Mr. Newton, grab him, look at this. And I remember Mr. Newton came in and he looked at me and he said, Aaron, he said, that's great. He said, that's brilliant. He said, however, there's involuntary muscle twitches and neurological twitches and spasms that you must understand. This may just be a reaction from the body.
Aaron, sorry to interrupt. Do you think that, because I have medical background, as you know, with dentistry, do you think that doctors are trained or reluctant to give people hope? Why would someone try to ground you straight away so there is something that is happening? Why deprive someone of the hope rather than saying, you know what, this is probably nothing? I mean,
it's an interesting question. My consultant actually was a very interesting man. He was a priest in his previous career, and he was a priest until he was 40 years old, and then he entered the medical profession, and he became a top orthopedic surgeon specializing in spinal. And the reason he did that was simply to help people and make the world a better place. And that's powerful, because this man, this consultant, was a beautiful man. He was an incredible guy. He had a heart as big as anyone I've ever met. However, I believe that the conditioning of his training in the environment led him to fear giving people too much hope and too much belief. And something I've been reading about recently actually is that people are more willing to live in disappointment than experience true disappointment.
I think that answer is what I kind of had in mind as the possible reason. Yes.
And it really frightens me, because there's real power in what I've just said, because I believe that there's thousands, maybe millions of people across the planet that are living in disappointment rather than living in hope and belief for fear of being disappointed. And I believe that actually there's probably thousands and millions across the planet that are being held back from health, held back from wealth, held back from personal development and lots of things that can really upgrade the way they feel and the way their life is. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. That's why I'm driven by purpose.
Let me ask you, well, I have many questions that have arisen just so apart from the ones that I had written. So, you were saying that you had those hope, those thoughts of walking, of running. Did you ever question those thoughts and have the opposite thoughts that this is pointless, I'm not going to walk again?
Yes.
How did you cope with that? Because it's, I think for me, this is the most debilitated thing, when you have overwhelming thoughts that go opposite to what it is that you want to achieve.
Yeah, I felt that a lot. And what I realised, actually I've only recently discovered this. I did this unconsciously when I was in hospital, and now I'm conscious of what I did. I was driven by fear. The emotional driving force, our heart, is why we do everything we do. And sometimes we do things for love, sometimes we do things out of fear. And when I was in hospital, I was driven by fear. I was so terrified of being disabled and in a wheelchair for the rest of my life that I was prepared to do anything. And in those moments of doubt, and there were a lot of moments of doubt, there's no question of that, and self-doubt, can I really do this? Am I deluding myself? Is my body really able to heal itself? And those thoughts were powerful. And this is one of the things I'm actually really proud of. In those moments, I had self-awareness. Not every time, a lot of the time. And in those moments, I had self-awareness, and I was able to take myself out of the situation and look at it as like a third party almost, and tune into my fear.
Okay, I see what you mean. So by self-awareness, you mean that you could see your thoughts as thoughts rather than identifying with them and letting them carry you where they go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost like, how can I describe it? Maybe when we have a thought process, it's like writing them down on a piece of paper. So you're removing them out of your head.
Okay.
And then when they're removed out of your head, you can really see them for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you can see them for what they are, you can be more logical about it.
Sure. Thank you. And there was, obviously in your book, you have you describe some techniques which I'm going to ask you in a moment of how you did that and how you advise or recommend others to deal with health problems or problems in general, things they want to improve in their life. I wanted to start with something that you mentioned already. You said that when the physiotherapist told you that, Aaron, wait a minute, you weren't going to walk, you went into a rage. You had a very intense feeling, which you harnessed it somehow. I think that's how you call it in your book. So my understanding is that somehow this very intense emotion was transmuted into healing energy. Is it something like that?
Yes, that's what I believe. When I look back at everything that I've done, and now I'm really, I'm reflecting on everything and trying to understand it, and I've been doing this for a long time now. And my understanding of it now is that there was an energy of anger, is what it started with. And energies vibrate on different frequency levels, like sound waves.
Mm-hmm.
And anger is a lower frequency than love, for example. That's a higher frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that high frequency energies like love and forgiveness and gratitude are healing energies. I think they have the capabilities to heal the body of physical symptoms and heal the soul. And when that anger came through me, it was very powerful. And when I woke up in that moment and my dad was there and I felt the love, like a childlike love, and the childlike love is very powerful. It's a very powerful love. And that energy, I believe, is what triggered the connections between my spine. It sent a flow of energy through my body so powerful that it started to recreate neurological connections. The thought process of what happened actually created electrical signals in the brain, sent it down the spinal cord, and was so powerful it fired signals which made it to my leg. Of course I didn't know that at the time. That's my understanding of it now. What I did know though, and I can't explain to you how I knew, but I knew, is that in that moment when Mr. Newton suggested to me that it's likely they're just impulsive twitches or spasms, is that I knew that wasn't correct. I knew that that signal had travelled down the muscle and it created movement, not spasm. It wasn't a reaction of the body in that way. And I just couldn't let it go. I just knew. And when I looked, I was thinking, what happened? What did I do? What did I do? And the powerful thing for me when I realised what I had done, and like I said, I didn't fully understand it, but what I did know is I created an incredibly powerful energy, and at the same time I had a visualisation, because I saw myself running. And I had the benefit of only being severely disabled for about 6 or 7 weeks at that time, so I still had a clear vision of what it was like to be fully able. So I had the benefit of a very strong visualization and the benefit of a very strong energy.
Did that happen automatically, or did you aim to produce that visualization or did it just happen at the same time?
It just happened.
It just happened.
Yeah. It wasn't something I did deliberately.
Do you think it is something that someone could do deliberately? Not in the same circumstances, but I mean having a very intense emotional state, a negative emotional state, and changing that energy into a positive one.
Yeah, absolutely, that can be recreated. I've done that.
Okay.
I've done it since, deliberately.
Okay.
I know people that have also done it as well. But yeah, that can be created. What I would suggest would be a stronger method is to skip the anger and go straight to love. But you know, anger's a strong energy.
Yes, of the opposite vibration. But I was only asking because I think most people from one time to another they can relate to having that very intense anger or sadness or a very intense negative emotion. So I was just wondering if there was a way of consciously transmuting that or turning it around. But thank you for your answer. Another thing that or technique that you describe in your book is the visualization.
Yes.
So tell us about how were you doing it? How would you advise people to visualize on what things? Obviously you did it you had a very specific situation that you wanted to get out of, so you were, shall we say, very much motivated to keep on visualizing. But in terms of the procedure, the process of visualization, how would you advise people to do it?
In terms of healing a specific injury,
yes,
I would advise that seeing themselves as fully healed. So, and I actually copied this from the Bruce Lee story, because when he was actually braced in this big brace machine, and he did these visualizations, and I got that from him, and he was visualizing himself doing his martial arts, and I copied that theory, I copied that technique. And what I would do is I would wheel myself down to the physio gym every single day in my wheelchair, and there were exercise bikes in there. Not like the ones you see at the gym. These ones were designed for paraplegics, where you sit down and you're more back and your legs are more in front of you rather than below you. And there's straps, so you can strap your legs in, strap your feet in, and you can strap your knees in, because with your legs not working, they literally fall off the bike. So it's designed for that. And what it does is it's electric, and the motor turns the pedals for you. And there's a digital reading above it, and it measures the resistance, or if your legs are putting any input in, and things like that. And what I did is every single day as I was on the bike, I would close my eyes and I would picture myself in the Tour de France. And I would, I don't know why. Just
what? No, I said, wow.
Oh, wow. Wow, yeah. The Tour de France is fun, so why not? And I would close my eyes and I would picture myself going through the mountains in France, and I would smell the air and picture my legs below me working hard, and I would feel the aching in them and feel the sweat running down my face, and I did this every day, and I really got in the moment, and that's really important for anyone out there that wants to do visualizations. Practice and practice so you get in the moment. Go beyond a daydream. Get in the moment and really feel it, because that's when the belief starts to kick in. We're tricking the brain. It doesn't know the difference between reality and non-reality. So whatever reality you create for it, that is its reality. So this is what I did every single day, and I would get really good at it. I practiced it. So I would go into the gym and I would get on the bike and I would shut my eyes and I would do this, and in my mind I was fit and I was healthy and I was on the Tour de France and I was winning the Tour de France.
Wow. Okay.
Why not? If I'm going to do it, I might as well win. But the important thing there is actually, because I was winning, the excitement through me created an energy. And it really created an energy in me, because it's one thing being on the Tour de France, it's another thing winning. And the excitement when I came down the Champs-Élysées and round to the Eiffel Tower, and I would see the crowds waving, and that was such an awesome feeling. I had this energy pumping through me, and that is what I did. And one day I was doing this visualization, and my mum actually came to visit, and I told her about what I'd been doing, and I joked and I said, "Mum, come and look at this, I've been winning the Tour de France." And then she looked at me and thought, okay. So she came in the gym, and I sat on the bike and I started to get into it, and because I'd been practicing every day, I just fell into the moment, and I fell into this reality. And all of a sudden she screamed, and she screamed so loud it made me jump. It snapped me out of wherever I was, and I came back into this reality where I was in the gym and everyone around me was in wheelchairs, etc. And she was screaming and shaking and looking, and she was pointing at the reading, and the reading was reading 300%. And what that meant is that my legs had gone from having no input to 300% input, which is not powerful. However, it's powerful enough to turn the wheels by myself. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, my legs had, the way I describe it is they literally jumped into life. They came back into life, and I'd done the same thing that I did in the wheelchair to create the muscle flicker. I'd created an energy and a visualization, and again, all of a sudden, now I had full movement, undeniable movement. And again, I shouted, "Mum, Dad, Mum, Mr. Newton, call him in." And when Mr. Newton came down, he calmly looked at me and smiled, and he said, "Aaron, with the movement you now have in your legs, I think we should do some physio with you." Okay. I think you have a chance of walking. And I laughed and I said, "Thank you." But you know, the really powerful thing there is I had taken people that did not have any belief in me and made them believe. Mm-hmm. And my environment was now an environment of belief. And that's when the real momentum happened. And that was really powerful, and it meant a lot to me.
Thank you. And I think belief is the whole theme around what you describe and what has happened. Shall we go through some other things that you also describe as techniques? You mentioned the affirmations.
Yeah.
So were you doing that at the hospital as well, or was it something that you started implementing afterwards?
Yeah, I didn't do affirmations in hospital.
But you advocate people to do affirmations.
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
heal them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. When I came out of hospital, I started to do more affirmations, and they're really, really, really powerful. Mm-hmm. I didn't know much about them or the power in them. Had I have known that when I was in hospital, I would have done them all day. And I like to do affirmations in a powerful way. I like to get energy involved. Mm-hmm. I believe that we're all energy. The universe is energy. We're just different densities and formats of energy. Yes. And to create energy is something that I believe creates real power in affirmations. And I use kinetic energy. I do movements, and I lower the tone of my voice as well, because I believe that connects with the frequency of my heart and my soul. So I really open up the energy between me and my soul and my body as well. And then I do my affirmations.
You also talk about deliberate practice. So do you want to share what is it that you mean by deliberate practice?
Absolutely, yeah. Deliberate practice is very important. Deliberate practice is something that I did in hospital. Again, I actually did that unaware. And now, looking back, I'm aware of what I did, and I read a book about it, the whole thing. And what deliberate practice is doing something, analysing the results, working out a technique or a method of improvement and redoing it. And what that means is, for example, if I go down to the driving range and hit 100 golf balls, and I keep doing that, but if I don't step back and analyse how I hit them or what I'm doing, I'm not going to improve. I'm only going to reinforce bad habits. Mm-hmm. If I go down to the driving range and I hit 10 golf balls, then I stop and then I analyse what I did or what I didn't do, and then I redo it, I'm likely to improve much more. And that's exactly what I did in hospital. And I worked out what was working and what wasn't working, and then I would improve on what was working.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, there is... I wanted to ask, so when you started walking, or even at that time when your doctor told you that, Aaron, we need some physio, did he ever give you a scientific explanation of how you healed.
No.
Obviously, he must have been puzzled. Because scientists need to give an explanation, need to find out why something happened. So, in terms of medical science, what happened in your situation?
I don't have an explanation.
Did the doctors tell you anything?
No. I have my own theory of how I believe it happened, which I mentioned about with the neurological pathways being created and energy doing that. I believe that thought alone is they're like a thought actually is an electronic signal in the brain, and when we have more thoughts we create more signals, and that actually creates neurological pathways, and by doing that I was creating those neurological pathways which were sending signals down my spinal cord and creating connections, and that's how I believe that happened, and I did that through thought, through energy, and through visualizations. But did I get an explanation from the doctors? No, I didn't.
Okay, I'm just a bit surprised because that is something that would need or require some investigation, wouldn't it? Because you make a prognosis that is 100% negative, and then you have a patient that defies that completely and goes the other way. So what? I mean, this science, in my opinion, should try and find out how the heck this happened.
I'm sure science is doing that, but they haven't achieved it just yet.
Okay. I want you to tell us also about, I know that you have a very strong connection with the law of attraction and The Secret, the book. Yeah. So share that with us if you want. I mean, when did you start reading? Was it before your accident or after that when you learned about the law of attraction?
After the accident.
Okay.
What actually happened was, when I got home, I went back to my dad's house, and I did that because I didn't want to go back to my environment where I lived with my mum before because of triggers, emotional triggers. I was grieving heavily. So, long story short, I ran away to Australia. A friend of mine was going travelling, and I decided to go with him. And I did that because my internal world was, it had fallen apart. You know, I hadn't grieved, or I didn't know how to grieve. I was still in the process, and I was struggling with the fact that I had lost my career, lost my income. I no longer had a best friend, and I no longer had a relationship. I lost my identity because I had an identity of being the football guy, or the guy that was good at football. I was no longer good at football and could no longer play. So I lost all of my identities, and that's very difficult. In my opinion, losing my identity was more difficult than the paralysis. It didn't feel like it at the time because I was so focused on physical healing. Physical healing is always the obvious thing. But when I went out to Australia, I decided that changing my external world was going to heal my inner world. And I got out on the beach, and it was beautiful. I was in the most beautiful place, and I felt worse than I'd ever felt. And in that moment, I realized that any type of healing, any type of situation in our life can only ever be dealt with from the inside out, from the heart and through thought processes. So I decided to read a lot of books, and I thought, well, okay, Aaron, you got to stop playing the victim now. It may or may not be your fault you're in this situation, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. So do something. So I picked up this book, and this book was called The Secret. And
Rhonda Byrne, yes, this is a book that has changed many people's lives. So, yeah. I remember when I read it many years ago, I was so fascinated by it, yes.
Yeah, it's a book that's changed millions of lives. It's a brilliant book.
Yes.
And I picked it up, and I was in a place where I was really starting to believe that miracles happened. And I was still in a place where I was working out myself and what had happened with my spine and my my paralysis, and I was seeing that miracles really do happen to ordinary people. And I read this book, and when I decided to test the theory, and I thought, I'm not sure about this. Does this really work? So I was traveling down the East Coast in a camper van with my friend, and I said to Ben, I'm going to give the book away, and I'm going to give it to a stranger, and I'm going to get it back. I'm going to use the law of attraction to get this book back.
Putting it to the test, okay.
Put it to the test. So I went over to this man walking down the street, and, excuse me, sir, would you like a gift? And he looked at me in the same way that my mum looked at me when I told her I'd won the Tour de France. But he took the gift, and so I went back to the camper van and immediately started drawing a picture of the book. And this process went on for 6 weeks, and I thought, you know what, you have to show the universe you deserve it. So I went to libraries and tried to force it and tried to make it happen. Every town we stopped in down the East Coast, I would visit the library, and no book. And 6 weeks later, I thought, you know what, this is ridiculous. You're not going to manifest a book. I've had enough. You've drawn so many pictures of this book. And so I stopped. And then we visited Noosa, and a friend of ours from England, he lives there now, and he said, my mum's doing a roast dinner on Sunday. Would you like to come over? She'll do an English roast for us all. It'll be really nice. So we did. Mm-hmm. And when we got there, I had the secret emblem tattooed on my arm because I was serious about this book, The Secret.
Right.
And I had a tiny little emblem just above my wrist, and as we were eating dinner, my friend's mum, she looked at my arm and she said, oh wow, you have The Secret tattooed on your arm. And I said, yeah, I did, and it doesn't work. And she smiled and she said, okay. And I said, yeah, I told her the story about trying to get the book back. And she looked at me, she nearly fell off her chair. She said, I ordered the book about a month ago, and she said they made a mistake with the order and they sent me 2. Would you like one? And in that moment, I had this incredible wave. I can feel it now. I'm triggering the emotion of, wow, manifestation and intention really works. It really works. And since that moment, I have lived my life by it.
Such a beautiful story, Aaron. Brings us to the present time now, where you are starting to hold events which involve healing. Is it self-healing? So tell us about the events that you've started organizing and doing, and let us know.
Yeah, well, what I'm doing at the moment is we've co-founded Conscious Success with my wife. And Conscious Success is the platform from which we're going to run our healing mentor programs and our live events. And it's called Conscious Success because we want to create success in people's lives. We focus on healing, but actually we want to create success in all areas of people's lives, in health, wealth, themselves, relationships, career, etc. But the key is to be conscious of that. Mm-hmm. To be successful is one thing, and some people are successful, but they don't know how they've created success. They just automatically do it. Mm-hmm. But what I want to create is a platform where people are conscious of how they created the success so that they can maintain a level of success in their life. And I'm not talking about a big bank balance. Maybe that's a byproduct of success. But what I'm really talking about is success in all areas of life. Balance. Yes. Health and spiritual and career and wealth. Wealth's important, but not just wealth and not just healing. So that's what we're doing. Now I'm creating multi-speaker events with other speakers who have equally incredible stories and as much to give as I do. And what I'm doing there is I'm doing that while we build these events for Conscious Success. Mm-hmm. And the Conscious Success events, the vision for me that I'm building is to create huge events with thousands of people in. And the reason I want to do that is because the energy in the room will be so incredible that I can create healing exercises and healing cages, if you like. I call them cages. They're like groups of people that will give healing to each other. Okay. And that will be so powerful that it literally heals people of physical symptoms in a moment. And when I say a moment, I mean a day or a week, but it will be in a very short space of time. And that's my vision. And the energy in the room will be so beautiful, so brilliant, so full of love. Not only will it heal people physically, but it will go beyond the symptom. It will go before the symptom, and it will go to the cause. It will go to the heart. And I want to heal the soul.
That's beautiful. And I've had my own experience of healing in a similar way, which was nothing like the intense situation that you had, but it was just a persistent pain on my knee, which was healed instantly. And that I didn't think that it would be possible for that situation that had lasted for 5 weeks to be healed instantly with an intervention that didn't involve even touching me. So it was mind-blowing. But I know that there are so many things out there that we're not aware of, and all it needs is some willingness to accept that there are things that we don't know, and once we open ourselves to the possibility, then miracles happen, don't they?
Yeah, I actually believe that is what stops most people who want to create a miracle in their life from doing so, because the how-to in the middle is what people will need to know, how they're going to get from destination A to destination B. They need to know the journey on the way.
Mm-hmm.
And because they can't see the journey, they can't see the destination. And if you can find it upon yourself to kind of drop that need to know, drop that need to demystify it by science, and just see the destination, the rest falls into place.
It requires faith to do
faith.
That. Yes. What's Martin Luther King that said, take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase.
Yeah.
Just take the first
Absolutely,
step.
Yeah.
Aaron, I want to thank you very much for our conversation today. Last thing that I want you to share with the audience is how can people find out more about you, how they can connect with you. So,
yeah, I'm on Facebook as a really good one. It's an easy way to connect. Go to my page, which is Aaron_Timms_official.
Mm-hmm.
Follow me there. You're welcome to private message me. I'm creating my website at the moment, which is www.aarontimmsofficial.com. So
will your events be the schedule of the events be there? Okay.
As and when the events happen,
Sure.
the events will be on there. There'll be the events that I'm speaking at, and also the events that we create for ourselves, the Conscious Success events. They'll always be on the website.
Brilliant. A real pleasure to have you. Is there anything that you would like me to have asked you, but I completely missed it? Anything that you want to share that we completely missed when we were talking about this?
No, there's nothing that's missed, but what I would like to say to people before I go is that I believe that you are one belief away from releasing your full potential. And if I can do it, you can too.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thank you, Agi.
Thank you.
Thank you.